A prelude to the nuclear arms race. The Soviet atomic bomb project. The Soviet atomic bomb project, a clandestine endeavor shrouded in secrecy and driven by geopolitical imperatives, is a testament to the relentless pursuit of scientific and technological prowess during the Cold War. The successful development and testing of the Soviet atomic bomb in 1949 not only shattered the United States' nuclear monopoly but also fundamentally altered the dynamics of the Cold War, ushering in an era of nuclear parity and heightened tensions between the two superpowers. The genesis of the Soviet atomic bomb project can be traced back to the early days of the Second World War, as Soviet scientists and intelligence agencies became aware of the American Manhattan Project, the top-secret effort to develop the world's first atomic bomb. Recognizing the immense strategic and political implications of nuclear weapons, Soviet leaders, under Joseph Stalin, initiated a clandestine program to acquire the necessary knowledge and resources to develop their own atomic bomb. The Soviet atomic bomb project faced numerous challenges, including a lack of scientific expertise, limited resources, and the devastation caused by the war. However, the Soviet Union benefited from a network of spies and informants who provided crucial intelligence on the American Manhattan Project, including detailed blueprints of the bomb and information on uranium enrichment processes. The Soviets also recruited German scientists and engineers who had worked on the German nuclear program during the war, further bolstering their scientific capabilities. Under the leadership of Igor Kurchatov, a brilliant physicist and the scientific director of the project, Soviet scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to overcome the technical hurdles and develop a viable atomic bomb. They faced numerous setbacks and failures, but their determination and ingenuity ultimately prevailed. On August 29, 1949, the Soviet Union successfully tested its first atomic bomb, codenamed RDS-1, at the Semipalatinsk test site in Kazakhstan. The news of the Soviet atomic bomb test sent shockwaves across the world, particularly in the United States, where it shattered the illusion of American nuclear supremacy. The Soviet achievement ignited a nuclear arms race between the two superpowers, as both sides sought to develop more powerful and sophisticated nuclear weapons. The Cold War entered a new and dangerous phase, characterized by a precarious balance of terror and the constant threat of nuclear annihilation. The Soviet atomic bomb project had profound implications for the geopolitical landscape of the Cold War. The Soviet Union's acquisition of nuclear weapons fundamentally altered the balance of power, forcing the United States to reassess its strategic posture and its relationship with its allies. The nuclear arms race led to a massive buildup of nuclear arsenals on both sides, increasing the risk of accidental or intentional nuclear war. The Cold War became a global struggle for dominance, with both superpowers vying for influence in every corner of the world. The Soviet atomic bomb project also had a significant impact on the domestic politics of the Soviet Union. The successful development of the atomic bomb bolstered the legitimacy of the Soviet regime and strengthened Stalin's grip on power. The project also fueled a sense of national pride and scientific achievement, as Soviet scientists and engineers were hailed as heroes for their contributions to the country's defense. The legacy of the Soviet atomic bomb project continues to resonate today. The nuclear arms race that it ignited has left the world with a vast and dangerous arsenal of nuclear weapons, posing an existential threat to humanity. The Cold War rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, fueled by the fear of nuclear war, shaped the geopolitical landscape for decades. The lessons of the Soviet atomic bomb project, a testament to the power of science and technology but also a cautionary tale of the dangers of unchecked ambition, continue to inform contemporary debates about nuclear proliferation and disarmament. A step towards Indonesian independence. The Dutch-Indonesian Round Table Conference. The Dutch-Indonesian Round Table Conference, held in The Hague from August 23 to November 2, 1949, was a pivotal event in the history of Indonesia's struggle for independence. The conference brought together representatives from the Netherlands, the Republic of Indonesia, and the Federal Consultative Assembly, a body representing various states the Dutch had created within the Indonesian archipelago. The culmination of this complex and often contentious negotiation was the transfer of sovereignty over the Dutch East Indies to the newly formed United States of Indonesia, marking a significant step towards the realization of Indonesian independence. By 1949, both sides were facing mounting pressure to find a peaceful resolution to the conflict. The Netherlands was facing international condemnation for its colonial policies and was struggling to maintain its military presence in Indonesia. The Indonesian nationalists, while achieving significant military successes, were also suffering from the economic and social costs of the war. The Round Table Conference was convened under the auspices of the United Nations, with the United Nations Commission for Indonesia playing a key role in facilitating the negotiations. The conference aimed to resolve the outstanding issues between the two sides, including the transfer of sovereignty, the status of Dutch economic interests, and the future of West New Guinea, now Papua New Guinea. The negotiations were complex and often fraught with tension, as both sides sought to protect their interests. The Dutch were reluctant to relinquish their control over the resource-rich archipelago and sought to maintain their economic and political influence in the region. The Indonesian nationalists, on the other hand, were determined to achieve full and unconditional independence and were unwilling to compromise on key issues, such as sovereignty and territorial integrity. After weeks of intense negotiations, the two sides finally reached an agreement on November 2, 1949. The agreement provided for the transfer of sovereignty over most of the Dutch East Indies to the United States of Indonesia, a federal state comprising the Republic of Indonesia, and 15 other states created by the Dutch. The Netherlands retained control over West New Guinea, with its status to be determined through further negotiations. The agreement also included provisions for the protection of Dutch economic interests, including the repayment of debts owed to the Netherlands and the continued operation of Dutch businesses in Indonesia. It also established a Netherlands-Indonesian Union, a loose association intended to promote cooperation between the two countries. The Round Table Conference agreement was a significant achievement, marking the end of Dutch colonial rule in Indonesia and paving the way for the establishment of an independent Indonesian state. However, the agreement was not without its flaws. The federal structure of the United States of Indonesia proved to be unworkable, and the issue of West New Guinea remained a source of contention between Indonesia and the Netherlands for many years. Despite its limitations, the Round Table Conference agreement was a crucial step towards Indonesian independence. It demonstrated the power of negotiation and compromise in resolving complex political conflicts and served as a model for other decolonization movements around the world. The conference also marked the beginning of a new era in Indonesian history, as the nation embarked on the challenging task of building a united and prosperous nation. A catalyst for European unity. The Schuman Declaration. The Schuman Declaration, announced by French Foreign Minister Robert Schuman on May 9, 1950, stands as a pivotal moment in the history of European integration. This visionary proposal aimed to create a common market for coal and steel between France and West Germany, with the ultimate goal of preventing future wars and fostering economic cooperation and political unity in Europe. The declaration not only laid the groundwork for the establishment of the European Coal and Steel Community, or ECSC, but also set in motion a series of events that would eventually lead to the creation of the European Union. In the aftermath of the Second World War, European leaders were grappling with the challenge of rebuilding their shattered economies and preventing a recurrence of such a catastrophic conflict. Schuman, a devout Catholic and a staunch advocate of European unity, believed that economic integration was the key to achieving lasting peace and prosperity in Europe. The declaration proposed the creation of a supranational authority that would manage the production and distribution of coal and steel, two essential resources for industrial development and military power. By pooling these resources, Schuman argued, European nations could reduce their dependence on each other, eliminate the economic rivalries that had fueled past conflicts, and create a sense of shared purpose and interdependence. The Schuman Declaration was met with mixed reactions. Some saw it as a visionary proposal that could transform the European landscape, while others viewed it with skepticism and suspicion. The Soviet Union, in particular, saw the declaration as a threat to its influence in Eastern Europe, and denounced it as a capitalist plot to undermine communism. Despite the challenges and opposition, the Schuman Declaration gained momentum, thanks in part to the unwavering support of French and German leaders, including Chancellor Konrad Adenauer of West Germany. On April 18, 1951, the Treaty of Paris was signed, establishing the European Coal and Steel Community. The ECSC, with its supranational authority and common market for coal and steel, marked the first concrete step towards European integration. The ECSC proved to be a success, fostering economic cooperation and growth among its member states. The success of the ECSC inspired further efforts towards European integration, leading to the creation of the European Economic Community, the EEC, in 1957, which expanded the common market to include other goods and services. The EEC, in turn, evolved into the European Union, the EU, a political and economic union of 27 member states that has become a major player on the global stage. The Schuman Declaration's impact extended beyond economic integration. It also had a profound political and social impact, fostering a sense of European identity and solidarity among its member states. The declaration helped to heal the wounds of war, particularly between France and Germany, and laid the foundation for a new era of cooperation and understanding. The Schuman Declaration's legacy continues to shape the European project today. The EU, with its single market, common currency, and shared values, is a testament to the vision and ambition of the Declaration's architects. The EU has become a model for regional integration, inspiring other regions around the world to pursue similar paths towards cooperation and unity. The Schuman Declaration, a bold and visionary proposal born out of the ashes of war, has had a profound and lasting impact on the course of European history. It not only paved the way for economic integration and political unity in Europe but also fostered a sense of shared identity and purpose among its member states. The EU, a product of the Schuman Declaration's vision, stands as a beacon of hope and a testament to the power of cooperation and reconciliation, in overcoming historical divisions, and building a better future for all. A defining moment in the Cold War. North Korea's invasion of the South. The pre-dawn hours of June 25, 1950, marked a turning point in world history as North Korean forces, under the command of Kim Il-sung, launched a surprise invasion across the 38th parallel into South Korea. This brazen act of aggression, fueled by ideological fervor and aspirations for reunification under communist rule, ignited the Korean War, a brutal conflict that would last for 3 years and claim millions of lives. The invasion, a product of Cold War tensions and geopolitical maneuvering, had far-reaching consequences for the Korean peninsula, the region, and the world, solidifying the division of Korea, and entrenching the rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. Kim Il-sung, with the tacit approval of Stalin and Mao Zedong, saw the invasion as an opportunity to unify Korea under communist rule. He believed that the South Korean government was weak and unpopular, and that the North Korean People's Army, the KPA, equipped with Soviet tanks and artillery, could easily overrun the South Korean military. The invasion was carefully planned and executed, with the KPA launching a multi-pronged attack across the 38th parallel, catching the South Korean forces off guard. The initial North Korean offensive was a stunning success. The KPA, with its superior firepower and numerical advantage, quickly overwhelmed the South Korean defenses and advanced rapidly southward. Within days, the KPA had captured Seoul, the South Korean capital, and pushed the South Korean and American forces to a small perimeter around the port city of Pusan. The situation seemed dire for the South, and the prospect of a communist takeover of the entire peninsula loomed large. However, the United States, under the banner of the United Nations, intervened decisively to defend South Korea. A multinational force, led by General Douglas MacArthur, was dispatched to Korea, and the tide of the war began to turn. In September 1950, MacArthur launched a daring amphibious landing at Incheon, behind North Korean lines, which cut off the KPA's supply lines and forced a retreat. The UN forces then pushed northward, crossing the 38th parallel and advancing towards the Chinese border. The Chinese intervention in October 1950, with hundreds of thousands of Chinese troops pouring across the border, changed the course of the war once again. The UN forces were pushed back, and the war settled into a bloody stalemate along the 38th parallel. The fighting continued for another 2 years, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. Truce talks began in July 1951, but negotiations dragged on for 2 years, as both sides sought to gain an advantage on the battlefield. The Armistice Agreement, signed on July 27, 1953, formally ended the hostilities, but it failed to resolve the fundamental issues that had led to the war. The Korean peninsula remained divided, with a heavily fortified demilitarized zone, or DMZ, separating the two Koreas. The war left a legacy of trauma and devastation, with millions killed, wounded, or displaced. It also solidified the division of Korea and intensified the Cold War rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. The North Korean invasion of South Korea in June 1950 was a watershed moment in the Cold War era. It was a conflict that had profound consequences for the Korean peninsula, the region, and the world. The war solidified the division of Korea, entrenched the rivalry between the superpowers, and left a lasting legacy of trauma and instability. The Korean War serves as a reminder of the devastating consequences of conflict and the importance of diplomacy and peaceful resolution of disputes. In the next chapter, we will explore the Chinese annexation of Tibet, as well as the Egyptian Revolution of 1952.